Hi there. Welcome to our first ever online OCW Winter Conference. My name is Misu Andrews. I write biblical fiction, but biblical fiction is my jam. It's the thing that I love, it's what I'm passionate about. So, if you would like to connect with me, please do that on my website. I'd love to meet with you there. Also, you can download a free novella there. So, let's get started on this workshop.
And welcome. In this workshop, we'll try to turn some of our writing world chaos into a coordinated effort toward accomplishing our goals. I have to confess up front that I'm a messy Misu, not a neat Nancy, but I'm going to give you some tips today on keeping fiction facts straight. To prove my point about the messy Misu comment, here's my office when I lived in Vancouver, Washington. So then we moved across the country and I had vowed to do better. We had this log cabin and I was in that loft and it just didn't happen. My outer world just always seems to be a mess. So my inner world has to be coordinated. Today's authors, we juggle more than just writing, don't we? Our number one job is writing a book. So today we're going to talk about number one, plotting, and number two, character development. But we're also going to talk about the marketing and publicity side of things. So we'll hit on social media, publicity articles, and even a little bit about street teams. Now, with all that to do, sometimes it feels so chaotic, doesn't it, when life presses in? Some days, if you took a picture of the inside of my brain, this is what it would look like. Yep, sticky notes with reminders and to-do lists covering every available brain space. Yeah. And I no longer live in that cabin with the upstairs loft office. You see, no, now my office looks like this. Well, okay, not really. I'm just kidding. But sometimes I feel like I don't even have time to go to the bathroom. And so here are a couple of really serious questions for you. When are we done editing? When is that troublesome scene ever good enough? And how many posts on Facebook or Instagram are enough? How often should I post to my blog? For that matter, what should I say in that post on my blog? Can you relate to any of those questions? Well, through the years, I've gotten a little better about coordinating my time and my processes. Now, notice I said coordinating and not organizing. You could tell by the pictures I'm not very organized, but coordinating is a little different. So let's try to illustrate with a deck of cards what I mean by that. So to coordinate, we shuffle this whole deck of cards together. Do you see that? Layering them neatly. However, we don't need to arrange them by suit or color or number. That would be organizing. Do you see that little bit of a difference? Well, let me try to explain it maybe a different way. So as writers, the individual cards would be the tasks that we're called to do, and the tools are going to be how we're going to organize those tasks. Oh, there I said it, that O word instead of the C word, but I think you'll get the hang of it as we go along. So we'll start with the tasks, and the tasks of writing a book that we're going to go with are plotting. We'll talk about character development and working with an editor. We'll also talk about those marketing and publicity tasks, social media, publicity articles, and street teams. Now, let's look at the tools that looks like a lot of stuff, huh? Well, the first one, that pen and paper down there, do you see it? We will talk about that, but a lot of the other things that we're going to talk about are going to be technology related. But don't lose heart if you're not a techie kind of person, because I am going to give you some other possibilities. But I use technology a lot, and I want to remind you, technology is your friend. Today we're going to talk about Scrivener. We're going to talk about Microsoft Word and Excel and OneNote. You may never have heard of OneNote, but by the end of this talk, you are going to hear a lot about OneNote. We're going to talk about YouTube and how that can help you. We're going to talk about Google Suite, um, Google Docs, Google Sheets, and some other things there. We're going to talk about a software. It's a team management software called Asana. Just some really simple little free software that's probably already loaded on your laptop that you may not even know about. And then Hootsuite, some of you may already know about that. All right, ready to go? Let's start with a little advice from someone you may be familiar with. He says this: you start small, then build stuff up until it looks like a story. Part of this is creative work, but part of the work is just managing your creativity, getting it organized into a well-structured novel. Any guesses on who that is? That is Randy Ingermanson. I've known Randy since my very first ACFW chapter meeting in Portland, and he's actually one of the smartest guys I've known. Now, he's talking about his snowflake method here, and I tried it in my early writing process. You can find it at the address I've just listed on the slide. Unfortunately, my brain doesn't work the same way Randy's does. But here's the important thing. Randy is the first person to admit the snowflake method doesn't work for everyone. And so he also says this: decide what might work for you and ignore the rest. You are the final judge of what works best for you. I love that. Find the best and ignore the rest. You'll hear that again at the end of this talk. And it's really important for you to remember that as we go through some of these tools and some of the tasks that I'm going to talk about. Some of it may not apply to you at all. So just ignore it. Just let it roll off and keep listening, because there might be something right after that that does apply to you. So let's dig in. Writing the book. First, we're going to talk about plotting. No matter what process we settle on, we still need to write it, right? So let's look at some of these tools that are going to help us coordinate all the research and/or thoughts alongside the various tasks that we face as authors. Here we go on plotting. We've got to come up with this skeleton outline, maybe, if you're a plotter. Maybe you're a hybrid and you plot just a little bit and then you kind of go by the seat of your pants for the rest of it. I have to tell you, here's something for those non-techie folks out there. I tried this Post-it note thing, and I didn't even get through the first act. Yeah, I was thoroughly confused. The different colors for the different POVs sometimes really helps folks. It just confused me. Again, my mind doesn't work that way, so that was not very helpful for me. But that is a way that many of my author friends, they love this, and they have their whole wall, one whole wall in their offices filled with these Post-it notes. And it is the way that some of my friends have done their books for decades. And so this has been very helpful for some folks. There's another way, though. I use Excel as the beginning of my plotting. We'll go more into that in just a little bit. And probably the most common writer's tool that is out there right now is called Scrivener. And we'll go a little more into Scrivener as we go here too, and you'll get to see some of that stuff. Let's go back to just pen and paper. The very first book that I bought way back in 2000 was called You Can Write a Novel by James V. Smith. And he had just some really great practical suggestions and tools, and this scene card was one of those. And this card has some really great features that I still use as checks when I'm preparing to write a scene. And you can pause the video right now to take a closer look at this card, and then go ahead and restart the video whenever you're ready. All right, I hope that was helpful for you. And again, if you're better with pen and paper, you want to ditch all of the computer stuff, that is totally fine. I would just, if you're wanting to ditch the computer stuff, just listen and let it kind of roll over you. And at some point, you may want to come back to it. So before I start plotting, something that I have found to be really, really important is discovering how my characters' ages and stations in life fit together. And so I do that with an Excel sheet. And as you can see down here at the bottom, that little tab at the bottom, DOB, stands for date of birth and ages. And I will go through and with each year, the year is an important event in the story. I will tell what age my important characters are when that event happens. And it shows me how their different ages affect that event. And it has really been a pivotal task in my writing process because it makes the characters come alive. It makes them more real, and it helps me develop that character because I know, oh, okay, he's 30 now. He's not going to react the same way he would have at age 12. So this has been a real important task to do before I actually start plotting. My second plotting step in Excel is for those like me who do a considerable amount of research. I create a second tab. It's called History and Plot. I create this worksheet. It has several little sheets. You'll see all of those tabs down at the bottom. This one, History and Plot, on it I record crucial research findings that I plan to include in the plot. And as you can see, I put the date, all the dates run down the left column A, and the names of the characters run across row 1. And then I begin to fill in the important information as I find it. Now, another really important thing that I learned through, I learned this the hard way. I make sure that I put the resource title and the author's name and even the page number sometimes um, within that cell so that, heaven forbid, if I get an angry reader that challenges something that I've put in the book, then I can go back to my research and be able to say, well, I got it from this resource. And that has become a really, really important part of my writing is to make sure that I have my fiction facts straight, but also my research facts straight. So my Excel sheets have become very, very important. I told you we were going to start talking about Scrivener a little bit, and so let me make the case for Scrivener. Because it is something that you do have to purchase if you're going to use it. So you want to make sure that it's something you'll actually use. I was not excited about having to learn another software. Even before you see this, I'm hearing your groans at having to learn another software. But let me tell you, it is the best tool for actually outlining the book itself. If you are at all an outliner, and I'm not, normally I was a pantser from the very start. And if you're not familiar with that term, it just means you kind of get the story and you write by the seat of your pants. Whatever emotion comes, you just start writing. Well, I can't do that exactly because I write biblical fiction. And so I already have some sort of skeleton to start with the scripture and the truth of those people that actually lived. And so I have that to work with. And then I have the research the historical facts that I need to throw in there too. And so I already have some sort of outline that I have to work with. And so I needed something that was a good outlining tool. And so after losing one complete manuscript, yes, 120,000 words completely gone. Oh, yes, because I was using Word and not Scrivener. And after having infinite Word documents crash or fly off somewhere in space or get totally locked and I couldn't get into them. Oh, yeah, that happened too. After 12 published novels and another one in the pipeline, I am 100% convinced that Scrivener is the bomb.com, to use my daughter's lingo there. It is the most amazing tool I've come across. It just can do so many things. And I've included the purchase link down there. I'm not a rep trying to get you to buy this for any other reason then it just is an incredibly helpful tool. I checked the website. It is $49, so it's relatively inexpensive. Um, and honestly, it may save you from getting prematurely gray hair like I did. Maybe not, but you know, I do think it'll make your writing life simpler. Simpler? Did I just say simple when it comes to writing? And now we're about to talk about character development. Oh dear, there are lots and lots of things. I could probably talk a week on character development, but don't worry, I won't. Uh, Scrivener is fantastic for character development. OneNote also is. I'm going to share with you lots about OneNote in this segment. And then there's another called Evernote that is very good too. And it is free. Yes, free. So that's exciting. But before we get into those techie tools, let's look again at good old pen and paper. Also from this You Can Write a Novel by James V. Smith. And this was the first edition, 1998 edition. I think he's got other editions that came out, and I'm not sure that they have these 5x8 index card samples. So I would encourage you to pause the video, take a look at this, even copy it down if you'd like, and then look up his book if you're interested in some really good practical insights into character development, scene development, that kind of thing. I took a lot of my character template that I use in OneNote from this card, and I still use it even today. So I really appreciated what he had to say and what he put on this card. So feel free to pause the video now, take a look at this, and unpause when you're ready to come back. So this is what the character template looks like on Scrivener. You can see maybe at the top that you have your chapters. Mine are numbered all the way 69, 70, 71. You can see at the top. And then just under that, you'll see characters. And so that's where we are. The screen that you're seeing, that's a character template on Scrivener. And so the one you're looking at right now is for Abigail or Balili. This is for my Of Fire and Lions manuscript, early stages. And I started another character template for Daniel. But what I found was because I had so much information, so much research, this just wasn't enough space for me. I had way too much information and research to fit in this small area of the notes section. However, it also has this places, and so you have a setting sketch, and I didn't show you that, but it's similar in the template where you can have for each of your scenes or each of your settings, you can describe a city, you can describe a nation, you can describe something as simple as a room inside a house, or you can describe the house itself. Then it also has this other section for front matter or back matter. So you see there it has a place for the dedication or the note to reader. You can have a bibliography, or you can even have your author's note. I have that in the back matter section. In the dedication part, as people help you through your book writing process and they come to mind, you can just jot down their name and what they did and have that record and add to that record through your book writing process. And then you don't have to come up with it there at the very last when you're trying to get ready for launch and trying to get ready for an editor and all of those things. So Scrivener is fantastic because you can have everything about your book all in one program. And that's what my friend Kristen Billerbeck had to say. She says, I write in Scrivener and I do a separate page for each character where I place pictures, work details, eye details, personality quirks, etc. So that is a huge plus for Scrivener. Now, the huge plus for Evernote is it's free. It is similar to OneNote, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. You can access Evernote from anywhere, and it syncs up to 2 devices. So you can have it on your computer, but you can also have it on your phone or your tablet. OneNote, it's my best friend. It's my detail Bible. It has every tidbit of information on every character, every location, every cultural research fact, and interesting factoid that I've ever researched or fictionalized in my little brain. It is all sketched out in my OneNote notebooks. And so here's how I'm gonna show you how this works. You ready? All right, this is a character card for Hezekiah for my Isaiah's Daughter book. And what you see here is this is teenager Hezekiah that I've circled, okay? I got that image from Getty Images, and normally nobody sees this. This is just for me. As I'm writing, I find a picture, I put it on here, and I look at that picture. He's silly, he's fun, he's wonderful. Then on Getty Images, I looked for an adult who's looked similar to that teenager. And I think I found somebody that looked pretty close. They got that big nose going on. And if you've read Isaiah's Daughter, you know I make mention of Hezekiah's big nose. And that's why, because I found these 2 pictures of this guy that looked very similar. Notice in the red rectangle with the little arrow, it's pointing to where it says page. These are all pages in this section. You'll see all of the characters listed in that. You'll see there the sections in this notebook I've divided into character, plot, locations, maps, research, front and back matter, and scriptures. And do you see just to the left of that blue rectangle? Those are colored tabs like you would see on file folders. Then, if you'll look to the left of that, you see in the purple rectangle what's called notebooks. Each of those notebooks are the project names. In my case, it's the titles of my books, or actually it's the main biblical character that my books explore. You'll see there Daniel or Jochebed, or some of them are Pharaoh's daughter, Isaiah's daughter. You know, some of them I'm not, like I said, I'm not extremely organized. I coordinate, not organize. So they don't all have the title. Some of them are just the character's name. So but do you see how it's organized from notebook to section to page? And each of those pages fits inside a file folder or a section. So that's how OneNote is organized. Now, the thing that's really impressive to me about, and has been really a blessing to me about these notebooks, is I can access the notebooks from any computer because they're saved on Microsoft Cloud called SkyDrive. Now, that also means that these notebooks, they are building as I continue to write more books. And this is especially handy since I needed to use some of that same information for Isaiah's Daughter that I used back in 2012 while I was writing Love in a Broken Vessel. So since I have such terrible memory, having all of these detailed files made it possible to dovetail those 2 stories absolutely seamlessly. I just copied, like with 2 clicks, I was able to copy all the research that I had done from Broken Vessel into Isaiah's Daughter, and I didn't have to redo all that research. That, oh my, that is coordination at its finest, right? This is why one of the reasons that I love OneNote, because it just cuts my time in half or less. Now, here's another reason that I love OneNote. My line editor for the last 4 books has been Lissa Halls Johnson. With each book, she had to prepare something called a style sheet. It's a lot of work for her. And finally, on the last book we did together, Isaiah's Legacy, she heard me talking about OneNote. And she asked me, she said, well, just share that file with me. I did, and she was able to create her style sheet from my OneNote, and it cut her time in half too. So here's what I'm going to say. If you don't have OneNote, or you don't have Microsoft Office, which is what it comes with, then I would say keep a style sheet at least. Now, what's a style sheet? At the very least, it's all of your characters' names with at least some description, ages, little quirks. Now, don't overload with description, but do give, okay, if he has a scar, which side of the face? Because that's consistency. We need that. Your line editor is going to need that for consistency, to check for that. Locations, give some description of the locations, especially if you're world building or creating locations that nobody else knows about or that aren't familiar to most readers. And by all means, create a timeline, days of the week, years, weeks, whatever. Which chapter does this particular event happen in? That's an important part of it too. So that's what a style sheet is, and that is why you will just make your editor very, very proud of you. And if you think, oh, well, I'm not with a publisher, so I'm not going to have an editor. Oh, no, no, no. If you're indie publishing, you need to have an editor. You need to hire an editor, and your editor will be so impressed with you if you hand them a style sheet. OneNote is my way of doing it because it's less work for me, but style sheet is really important and a good alternative for you if you're not too much into the OneNote thing. The dreaded marketing and publicity. Oh man. All right. Well, here's the deal. I've never been able to juggle. My husband can juggle eggs, he can juggle balls, he can juggle shoes. But I have a hard time rubbing my tummy and patting my head at the same time. So juggling is not my deal. So the first time my marketing team asked me to fill out a 15-page marketing questionnaire for a book I hadn't even started writing, egad, I learned to juggle in a hurry. So while I'm now intensely writing a book, I also have to be engaged in social media. I have to be generating blog posts, newsletter articles, and publicity articles, and I have to be staying in touch with my street team for our next launch. So let's learn how to juggle, shall we? Because social media, articles, and street teams are important whether you are traditionally published or indie published. So let's look at social media first. Can you believe it? I actually use Excel again to help me with social media. Now, you could also use Scrivener by setting up a folder with this same name that I've used down here, Fun Quotes. So as I do the final edit, it's usually a copy edit in my case. Actually, that's before the galleys, but that's when I do it, is with the copy edit. I look for memorable quotes in the story to pull out, and then I use those as shareable memes. So when the book launch approaches, I'm able to simply highlight this whole page. I'm then able to copy and paste it into an email to my street team members, and I give them permission to create memes. Then we sometimes turn that into a contest in which they fill a shared Pinterest board that's designated exclusively for them, my BFF team, biblical fiction fans, or they share it to our private Facebook group so that others in the group can download all these memes and then they cross share those memes to their profiles. Either way, the team's memes, say that 10 times fast, blah, blah, those memes become available to me so I'm not the one having to create all those graphics. And social media all of a sudden has become easy peasy, right? All right, so now let's look at those topics for those pesky blogs and newsletter articles that we have to write. Let's use those fun little free software things that are already loaded on our computers. Mac has this thing, it's called Notes or Reminders or something, and I just list all of the ideas that I have for articles as I'm writing my book. I just go to my notes thing and say, this would make a good newsletter article, blah, blah, blah. Or I go back to OneNote and I look through that and think, oh, okay, that would interest my readers. Or if I find any kind of a YouTube video that is interesting or fascinating, I make a note of that on that notes file that came already loaded on my laptop. For instance, here, number 2, the Bible Project, they have such fabulous, fabulous videos. And when I was writing Of Fire and Lions, I found one on the exile of Judah to Babylon. And so that made a great article for one of my newsletters. I also later on found how ancient Israelites made harpstrings or bowstrings. And that was a fun video that I was able to share during the release of my indie published book, By the Waters of Babylon. And then for Of Fire and Lions, that was the story of Daniel. And I did not include a lot of the prophecy in Daniel. And I knew that people who read the story of Daniel might be really interested in what I had to say about Daniel's prophecies. And I was afraid they would be kind of disappointed that I hadn't included a lot of prophecy interpretation. And so instead of just not addressing it or avoiding the topic, it's oftentimes good to just, if there's an elephant in the room, put a bow on it, right? So I did a whole blog post on here's why I did not address the prophecy sections in the book of Daniel, but here is a great book that I have read on the prophecies in Daniel and something that y'all might be interested in. And so even something like that, even when you don't want to do something, tell your readers why you didn't do something, and that can actually become a good blog post as well. What if you forgot to keep track of the specific quotes or article ideas for your launch? And I would say if that's the case, then hopefully go back to OneNote if you've used that. If not, what about Evernote? Did you use that? And if you didn't use Evernote, what about Scrivener? You can always go back to that. And if not, oh yeah, have I told you about OneNote? Okay, well, there you go. And if not, then let's do that style sheet. And you can do that by taking just a quick glance through your manuscript. You're so familiar with that manuscript, you can do a style sheet pretty quickly. Believe me, it can be done. All right, now I hope you're starting to understand what I mean by coordinating your tasks with tools. So let's take a brief look at how you can coordinate with a street team. First of all, and foremost, make it personal. They come on your street team because they want to know you. They want to know about an author. Now, of course, yes, they want free stuff, but make it exclusive stuff. They also would want free downloads and maybe Facebook Lives with that private group. It costs so very little and it makes your team feel very special. So, speaking of special, Offer a key role, a volunteer position that would work closely with you to lead the team, your coordinator. Do you see how nice that sounds? Don't ask, would somebody help me out with this team because it's way too much work for me? And see, that doesn't sound nearly as appealing, does it? No. This volunteer should be willing to offer a significant amount of time and enthusiasm to help with your social media and marketing goals. But it should be someone who really loves your work and who is excited to partner with you to do this. It's this individual who you may want to introduce to the following tools to streamline your tasks as the launch day approaches. So this is where the Google Docs really comes in handy. If you don't have Microsoft Office, Google Docs is a great way not only to communicate with this volunteer street team coordinator, but Google Docs is a free word processing. And then Google Sheets is basically a free Microsoft Excel program, but it's also something that you can share free with this coordinator if that need be. It's actually how we keep track of our street team. We share a Google Doc and they fill in their own address, phone number, whatever, and let them do that task so we don't have to. And then the next one is Hootsuite. I think I've mentioned that. This is a great way to be able to schedule social media posts to multiple platforms in advance. Now, it used to be free, but unfortunately now it's a paid service. So it is something that you might consider doing around launch time, but it can get a little pricey. The next one that I'm going to talk about is Asana. It is a team management software that I use with my assistant, and we coordinate on this daily, weekly, monthly tasks. And she plans out a full year social media plan for me. She gives me content tasks to do each week, and I schedule each month's writing projects day by day by day with this software. For instance, Mondays are administrative days for me. I write all my blogs, my newsletters, and all my social media posts on that day and schedule them with Hootsuite, and then they just go out automatically. You may not be ready to work with a coordinator or an assistant yet, but just be aware that there are these great tools out there if or when you're ready. Now, I know I've given you a lot of information. You may be saying, "Oh my goodness, does this really work?" Well, here's the answer. Yes, it does. And this is what my screen looks like most days. So I have Microsoft Word up. So after I send my manuscript to my editor, it comes back in a Word document with track changes. And so then I can no longer work in Scrivener anymore. Now my editor goes back and forth with me using Word. And so Word is up here with the number 1. And then the second thing I have up there with number 2, I have my browser open so that I can look up information to create blog posts, to answer interview questions, to create publicity articles. And then I get a lot of that information from Excel. So I have my Excel stuff up right there, and it's ready to give me all that information that I need. And then I have that little notes software that was already loaded onto my Mac computer so that I get all those great ideas for my blog posts and my articles right there off of my notes software. And then I have my Bible software down here in the bottom left or bottom right corner. Number 5, my Bible software is open all the time so that I can quickly grab a scripture quote and add that into what I'm writing. And then finally, yep, there it is up there in the top left-hand corner, OneNote. It is my best friend. Now, does all that look totally overwhelming to you? I hope not. But maybe some of you want to curl into a ball, with a simple pen and paper and just write. Yeah, well, you know what? That's the same way my dear friend Laura France feels. I adore her, and she writes all her first drafts with a pen on a legal pad. And that is okay too. It really is. And she's on her 14th book. Two of them are in the publishing pipeline, and she's got 12 out there doing very, very well. So I emailed her a couple of days ago and said, so tell me what it is about that pen and paper that just does it for you. Tell me why you don't use all these techie things that I love. Tell me what you love about the handwritten thing. So she said this to me in an email back. She said, yes, handwritten for me all the way. I feel an intimacy with pen and paper while the keyboard leaves me cold. Research bears out that writing longhand engages the creative side of the brain, while devices engage the more analytical or editorial side. Of course, writers and research varies. You can probably find someone or something to refute my claim, but I'm personally far more engaged with my story and the emotions therein, and I never, ever feel dry, nor have I had writer's block. The connection is solid when I'm writing, and that's stayed true over my 14 books till now. Laura France is and has always been partial to pen and paper, and she gives us the same advice as Randy. Find your best and ignore the rest. Even with all of this bunch of information that I've given you, what tools work for you? We talked about Scrivener. You can write with it, plot with it, develop characters, create social media and articles. It works with Mac or PC. It's relatively inexpensive. We talked about the Microsoft Office suite. You can write, plot, develop characters, create social media and articles. Works with PC or Mac also, but it can be a little pricey. Then we talked about some of the free stuff, Google Suite, Asana, Hootsuite you have to pay for, but those things are online, they're apps or software for working with street teams, coordinators, and author assistants. What is going to work for you? I hope you found something or heard something that will help you today. No matter what the tools, no matter what the tasks, I hope that you're listening for the Lord's whisper, because ultimately, He's the one who makes our writing effective, and it's Him that we're writing for. He's the audience of one. So no matter what tools you choose or what tasks you're given in this life, our God is able to bless us abundantly so that in all things, at all times, having all that we need, we will abound in every good work. So whether you're seeking an agent or not, whether you're waiting for a publisher to offer a contract or not, whether you indie publish or you keep waiting for other doors to open, no matter how the Lord is leading you, keep writing. And always, always write for an audience of one. It's my prayer that you and He together will find some of the tools we explored today helpful with whatever tasks lie ahead for you. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for those who are listening. You know each one intimately by name. You know what each one is facing in their lives. You know what they're writing. You know what tasks they need to do, and you know what tools best fit them in this moment of their lives. So, Father, I pray that you will indeed bless them abundantly and turn their chaos into coordination with something that they've heard here today. And I pray, Father, that in all ways, in all things, at every moment, they will remember they are writing for an audience of one.